Welcome back to the main Art Spirit Studio. We're at the Indian Island School today, and I want to work with students in the 5th grade who are actually making figures and sports action figures or action figures that are doing something, playing some sort of sports or some activity. And my particular sculpture evolved from a dancer to actually someone who is playing soccer, like this picture behind me, and just about ready to kick the ball. And so what I did is I extended a piece onto it so that I could actually have the ball a little further out than the figure. If you need an extra styrofoam, and any of you 5th graders, you can get a hold of me, and I will definitely get that to you. And welcome all to the people out there who've been joining and watching my videos. We are going to learn how to paint on sculptural plaster today, or plaster craft. And the type of paint we're going to use is acrylic paint. And when you come back, let's roll up our sleeves and let's get into this. Now the paints that I have are white, yellow, red, a yellow ochre, which is made from violet, not purple, violet, a balance between red and blue. Right in the middle would be violet, added to a tiny bit of yellow to create, quite a bit of yellow actually, to make yellow ochre, and then black. Then I just have a regular meat tray that I'm going to use. I'll have 2 large brushes, well, one very large one, and then a line brush who can make smaller shapes. So you should have 2 size brushes. I also have paint markers today, and painters are excellent for making lines and details that you may want later on. In the sculpture that we're going to do today, in this particular picture, I'm going to do the darker blue and create this orange red using my paint markers and some of these numbers and details doing that. Everything else that can be done will be done basically. I won't be doing the eyes, nose, and mouth and a lot of details. I'll just be doing the color of the total hair, the color of the face, and keep it as basic as possible. And I think when you do that, when you have a faceless sculpture, then pretty much the viewer puts any face on the sculpture, which is kind of cool. The other thing I have is water, and with this, we're going to go right into painting. First thing I'm going to mix is going to start with yellow and white to make a very light white yellow. And I'm going to add water to it to make it fairly thin, not too thick. So if it just feels too thick, you always add water, and water actually loosens up the binder. I'm going to add some red to it. And when you add red, and what I want to show you is how to make flesh tone. So orange is, pinkish orange like this is pretty close. You're just going to add a tiny, tiny bit of blue. So you add white to that blue, and you're just going to gradually make it. Now, if that turns green like that, it's probably because I had too much yellow and too much blue. I'm going to put the yellow back into it. And then I have a flesh tone. So you have to kind of play around with the red to try to balance out to the green sometimes. It sometimes takes over. Then I got to add more white to it. Now this is if you want it more brown, you probably add more blue to it. But those 3 colors you want to kind of play around with to get the flesh tone that you want. So paint the sculpture inside out. So you're actually going to paint the flesh tone. And the thing about all acrylic paint is that it actually dries darker. So if it's dark, if it's too dark when it starts, it's going to be even darker when it dries. And you'll find that when you start painting on the plaster, it actually soaks in, because that's what plaster does. It's very, very porous. So all of the skin, I'm going to start right now. And down toward the face, I'm going to make it just a little darker with a darker red, just a kind of darker kind of tone. Add a little bit of yellow ochre up in here. Just a little bit of yellow ochre. Yellow ochre is this. So it'll be a little more yellow up in here and a little redder down in here. And I'm not going to do lips and eyes and nose is there already, but I'm not going to do a lot of detail. And I'm going to bring the skin down to this part before it actually goes into the shirt. Now you add water and it actually flows a little better. So your face generally right here where your cheeks are and here, it's just a little redder and a little darker. So it goes from dark to light up in here. And you add more light up into your forehead. And you have a multicolored kind of flesh tone face, which is quite nice. Okay, the other thing I'm going to do is create a darker kind of, I've got some black here, and black and yellow, because there's so much blue in the black, is going to turn red. And it's going to turn green. You add some red to it and it will turn brown. So I'm going to play around with this idea of making brown and see if I can't do the hair now. Again, the hair could be different colored hair. It doesn't have to be all one color brown. In fact, the more variant the brown, probably the more exciting. If you really want some blue in there, you can, and you add more red. And you can see that I'm going a little darker with my brown. Kind of now I'm going to add a little more yellow ochre to it. And use the pounce method. And when you have these holes, actually use more water and flood it into those, because you're actually having to flood the paint into the canyons that you've created, the deep canyons and crevices. Just like that. So far I'm just using my smaller brush to do these smaller areas. And what you're also doing with acrylic paint is you're sealing the sculpture. So sealing it is really a great thing. Because plaster is going to continue to suck up anything in the environment, including dust, and it does get dirty over time. So you have to kind of sometimes worry about what you're going to do with your sculptures. Plaster does not have to be painted. George Segal and other artists have painted some beautiful paintings, created some beautiful sculpture where, the sculptures are not actually painted at all. And the reason being is that sometimes the actual medium is the message more than trying to get the medium to look like any particular thing. If you follow my creative rift there, or drift. Okay, the next step is to make sure your little brush is washed. You're going to put that aside and do your larger brush. And we're just going to continue to do the light shapes first. That's why I did the flesh tone first, because it's the lighter. So if you don't want it too pink, then you're going to add a tiny bit of blue, and it will kind of brown it up a little bit and create a really nice flesh tone. And then take your big brush and you're going to paint all of the flesh tone area. You use the pounce method to get into those nooks and crannies areas and those little valleys and holes. You just go like that and you pounce on it, and it will actually work. It'll work great for you. So she's got an arm here. In the final step, make sure you hair dry your paint and make sure it's completely dry, and then express yourself with painter's markers. You doing different colors and lines and shapes for the design of the art. Well, once again, it's been wonderful making art with you today. We made a painted sculpture, and you can see as you start to paint the sculpture, it starts to come to life. And that's the great thing about it. We mix different colors. Remember to add water to thin the acrylic out, because plaster actually soaks up a lot of water and paint. Also, if you can get these paint markers, these are terrific for doing details. You can get them at different hobby stores. Remember to friend, like, or subscribe so you can get other videos that will come. This project, I'm hoping I can get a picture from you 5th graders by the end of May, so I could actually see what you've done, and these will be hopefully graded. So this will be your final art grade for the year, so take your time on these, make these really great. The rest of you out there who are trying this and having a lot of fun with this, I'd love to see your artwork too. So my website is, actually, let me give you my email address, which is michael.vermette@iis.bie.edu. And my website is www.michaelevermette.com if you ever want to go and see my other artwork. But I would love to see what you've done. So have a great day and have a great painting sculpture experience. I'll see you next time.